Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into the foundational concepts from the very first lesson of the 10-part Christian Care Mentor course. If you've ever thought about stepping into a mentorship role, or honestly, if you just want to understand the real impact of walking alongside someone in a tough season, you are in exactly the right place. In this quick 5-minute overview, we're going to demystify the beautiful role of a Christian care mentor. We'll break down what it actually means to share God's love with informal caregivers, the folks tirelessly looking after family or friends. It's a role completely rooted in empathy, and as you'll see, it's way more approachable than you might think. So let's tackle the biggest hurdle right out of the gate. Do you have to be perfectly healed to help someone else? Really think about that for a second. So often, people who have survived the grueling marathon of caregiving feel this overwhelming weariness. You might look at your own lingering sadness or the scars from your journey and just immediately count yourself out. You're probably thinking, I'm still putting my own pieces back together. How on earth could I mentor anyone else? Well, the lesson we're looking at today flips that script entirely.
To see what I mean, let's look at the story of Thomas. When Thomas first agreed to become a mentor, he was super doubtful. He had cared for his wife through years of declining health, and honestly, he wondered if his lingering grief just flat out disqualified him. But then he had his first call with his mentee, Mike, who was caring for his sister after a stroke. Right away, Mike started apologizing for talking too much. And Thomas simply said, "You don't have to apologize. This is your space." That one simple sentence changed everything. Thomas didn't offer rapid-fire advice. He didn't quote scripture to try and pouch things up. He just offered quiet companionship. And in doing that, Thomas realized his pain hadn't vanished, but it had transformed into this incredible offering of grace. Mike felt seen, and Thomas realized his lived experience was actually his credential, definitely not a disqualification.
Now, there's a really clear boundary here about what a mentor is and what they aren't. The text calls this the standalone principle. A Christian care mentor is absolutely not a clinical counselor. You're not there to solve a psychological puzzle or hand out a prescription. A professional counselor solves problems using clinical expertise, right? But a peer mentor, they share their lived experience and just offer pure presence. Your authority literally comes from the fact that you've been there. You're accompanying them. You are definitely not trying to control or correct their journey. So, if you aren't fixing things, what exactly is your identity here? The lesson breaks this down into 3 core pillars of mentorship, and I love this part because these pillars rely entirely on grace and humility, not on having a PhD or perfectly memorizing the right things to say.
Here's what that looks like in the real world. First, you're the witness. You model hope by honestly acknowledging the hardship. You don't gloss over the pain, you actually testify to faithfulness right in the middle of the mess. Second, you are the listener. In a world where caregivers so often feel completely invisible, your patient ear directly counters that isolation. You're creating a quiet, safe space for peace. And third, you're the burden bearer. Now, catch this because it's absolutely crucial. Bearing a burden does not mean taking it away. It means standing right alongside them, lending your emotional support so the sheer weight of it all doesn't crush them.
This whole mindset is anchored in a beautiful truth. The text points directly to 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This right here is what grounds a mentor. It's the ultimate reassurance that God isn't waiting for you to be this beacon of perfect, unbreakable strength before he can work through you. No, he works right inside our human weakness. Believe it or not, your vulnerability is the exact tool being used to comfort someone else. And that perfectly sets up why this program leans into what's called a strengths-based approach. Because mentors know that grace works through weakness, they don't look at their mentee and just see what's broken. Instead, you're actively looking for the gifts God has already planted in them. You're helping this exhausted caregiver rediscover their own grit, their organizational skills, their deep compassion, or hey, maybe even their sense of humor. You're affirming that they're capable and reminding them that they are absolutely not defined by their struggle. So practically speaking, how does this unfold over time? Well, this mentorship is laid out as a 6-month journey across 3 distinct stages. Stage 1 is building the foundation. This is where you establish trust, set up healthy boundaries, and really invite God into the process through prayer. Stage 2 is the longest stretch, walking the path. This involves months of one-on-one phone chats where you're practicing the ministry of presence, just being there without rushing any kind of finish line. And finally, stage 3 is the handoff. Because you don't stay in this formal role forever. You get to celebrate their growth, cheer on their independence, and affirm that even when your calls end, God's presence is staying right there with them. As we wrap up this overview, the lesson drops this brilliant thought from Miles Downey that just perfectly sums up the whole concept. It says,
The primary function of the mentor is to understand, not to solve, heal, make better, or be wise. Seriously, if you take nothing else away from this explainer today, let it be that. It should lift a massive weight right off your shoulders. Your true goal? It's just to understand.
Because the real magic of this approach is what happens next. In that moment of true understanding, the caregiver starts to understand things for themselves. They become more self-aware, and suddenly, they're in a much better position to make their own decisions. It's profoundly simple and simply profound. When someone feels deeply, genuinely understood by you, you don't even have to hand them a master plan. They actually become empowered to navigate their own way forward. So, to close things out, I want to leave you with a really powerful reflection question directly from the text. Where might you be tempted to fix rather than accompany? Look, it is completely human nature to want to swoop in and solve problems for the people we care about, but true mentorship asks us to shift that mindset entirely. Take a little time today to reflect on your own journey. Think about how you can use what you've learned not to fix, but to quietly, powerfully walk alongside someone who really needs it. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it empowers you to see your own story as an incredible tool for companionship.